Okay, so I think today's a really good opportunity with our masterclass on overwhelm to do some coaching as well. And I would love to hear, because I would be really interested in both of your individual process of when you feel overwhelmed and what that experience is like for you. And
Hmm.
so today I will put you both on mute just because around the recording thing, it just needs to do that. And then when you talk, just unmute yourself and come into this space. Um, so if you've got any other questions, type them in, write them down. Definitely have notes. But yeah, have a think about that first question around what is overwhelm like for you specifically on an individual level. Like, how do you experience overwhelm, and like what's your default when you're in overwhelm too? Now, you may not know what it is just yet, and as we go through the content and do some coaching, you'll get a clearer understanding of your process around it. Because overwhelm actually lives, when we talk about polyvagal theory and the ladder, Deb Dana's ladder, it actually lives at the bottom of the ladder when we're overwhelmed. So, does anyone know their experience of overwhelm so far? And would you like to bring it in?
Hello.
Go for it, Kate.
Oh, look, I don't know if I figured it out yet, but
Yep.
I felt like I had to do something. um, how does overwhelm feel? It feels overwhelming. Um, Paralyzing, too
Uh-huh.
much, too hard, impossible. Can't see any options. You can't think straight.
Yes,
You
okay.
can't see, you can't solve anything. You just want to go and lie, probably the dorsal vagal, you just want to go and lie in bed and hope that the world just, it's all too hard.
Right. So
And
you've
you
got a
can't see a way forwards.
yes, you've got a very clear understanding of your language around when you're overwhelmed, and
Oh,
you said
okay.
it's too hard to. So on a body sensation wise, if you were to
Low
tap
energy as well. Is that what you're
low
getting at us?
energy, yeah,
There's no energy. Everything's really hard to drag your body out to do anything.
yes,
Your body's like, no. So,
yeah.
yeah, because other days when you're feeling positive, you're like, wow, I just did all this stuff today. You're like, wow, how did I do that? Yeah.
So what would be the difference between the wow, I just did all this stuff, and that overwhelm, like that hardness? What would be the different quality there?
Well, you feel confident and that you can achieve things.
Uh-huh. And
Yeah.
let's say, like, if you were to hold one in this hand and the other, so let's hold the excitement and getting things done in this hand, and in that hand, in the other hand, it's the overwhelm. Just hold the two and just tell me what you notice when you're holding the two.
Um, I don't know. Overwhelmed feels like a sad loser. Can't get it right kind of thing. But
Right?
it's all, yeah, light and like, and very heavy. And the other one's like,
Heavy.
yay, light.
So one's heavy, yeah, great. That's the
Yeah.
quality of it, right? It's heavy. And the other,
Mm. Well, light, I guess.
light,
And
great.
positive. Positive.
It's really good to get the sensation and qualities of it in the body too. So you've got such an amazing understanding of how the thought processes come up
I don't
around it.
seem to pick it when it's actually happening, though.
Yeah, and this is why bringing awareness in is really, it can be really supportive, because it's like one feels light and one feels heavy. Even just simplifying it like that, you can go, ah, okay.
Mm.
So that's good. Thank you, Kate. That's great. How about you, Tracy? Did you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I actually, it's so funny, but I find I tend to go the other way as well. So I find I know my language changes around have to, should. So I get into that sort of mindset of lack of choice.
Yeah.
These are things that, must get done. So then I go into sort of a hypervigilance around getting stuff done. So I will push myself. And rather than actually look at what needs to happen, where can I say no, I'll tend to take it on. So take it on. And then I get stressed. So that comes out in being snappy, mood change for sure, very short with the kids, and very focused to try and get stuff done. But I can also find that I'm probably inefficient and unproductive because I'm not actually I'm just getting through the motions. Yeah. So when overwhelm happens, I try and take more on to get through it more. And so I go into this crazy panic productive kind of mode, but in the end, it's very unproductive because I'm not actually assessing what I'm doing. I'm not looking at, if that is actually needed, or why am I actually doing this, and prioritizing and doing things like that. So yeah.
And the interesting thing about the two differences that you both brought in, right? So the overwhelm that Kate brought in was like in that shutdown dorsal state of like how, it's too much, it's too hard, it's impossible, I can't get out of bed, right? So that's the real shutdown of it. And what you brought in, Tracy, is feeling the overwhelm and then trying to get back up the ladder by doing. So I'm feeling so overwhelmed, and the only way I know, like the default that I have to get out of this feeling is to get things done, do more. And so I resonate also with that too, because I have also experienced when I go into overwhelm, the way that in the past, the way that I would try to come out of it is I'll make big leaps, or I'd try to like really I'd try to create and fix like, and do and do and do. And I'd find myself back into that feeling of overwhelm because I wouldn't get the outcome that I wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. The outcomes don't usually come.
Yeah.
I can, sorry, is it okay if I speak?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I can really relate to that as well. That's how I used to be.
Yes.
Manically running around doing all these things that were like, I would say, I'm attempting not, yes, exactly the same stuff I was doing.
Yeah.
It was like move, do, you're doing that something, but it was all not in order and it wasn't sort of gelling. Yeah. And all that stuff. So you're going 10 feet forward, 50 back.
Yes. And so the way that I like to see it now, if we just simplify it, to just really simplify it, we're trying to get ourselves out of the state of overwhelm to come back up the ladder. And what we've learned in the past, the way that we do it in the past, it gives us that quick hit to come into fight, flight, and get back up. But it's not giving us the outcome we want. So our default is to create or to do to get out of overwhelm. So to just really even just simplify it as that, and it's out of alignment because we're trying to get away from a feeling rather than actually go back to what is the overall goal? What am I actually doing here? So we'll move into that space too, around that. So Kate, you had some really great thought processes around overwhelm at the bottom of this ladder here that I've got on the screen. And also, Tracy, you had some really great information around I should get this done, I've got to get this done. That's generally in sympathetic activation, it's fight, flight. Fight, flight, we tend to worry. So what I know with when we have a goal, say we've got this goal that we're working towards, we will come into times where there's going to be unknowns. We're going to have unknowns and we're going to have stressful experiences. The way that we respond to those stressful experiences, that's what counts here. Because if we continue to, as you both said, do it from a place of panic or stress, we create more unwanted outcomes. So the point of bringing awareness to overwhelm in this session is to bring awareness to just how we experience it and then what we can do to create a different way of being. It's like rewiring that space. So what I've got here is at the top of the ladder, I have a plan. I know the steps. I know the steps I need to take. Generally at the top, we're feeling good about like our plan. We've got a plan, we're making the steps, we're doing something well. Then something activates us. It could be money, it could be the thought of not making money, it could be the thought of dealing with certain people, it could be a partner that's like an ex-partner that's come in and activate us, it could be our children. Something has activated us, and then we start to think about the goal in all these different ways, where we go, oh, I need to meet it now, I need this relief now, I need this money now, I need this stress relief now. And that's when we start to go into a bit more of a panic and a worry. So we start to worry because we want to ease the tension. And what I say with goals is there's going to always be this tension at some points where we need to sit in it in a different way to what we have in the past. And this will be individual to everyone's experience. So for example, for me, when I left my job and I started creating my own business and working for myself, I had to sit in the discomfort of the unknown. And that discomfort was scary. And part of me would say, there'd be parts in the fight flight that would go, you need to go find a job. You need to get a job right now. Actually go search on Seek and get a job. And so like I'd start searching and doing those sort of things. That was out of alignment with my goal though. So it would be different if a job opportunity came up in alignment with my goal, because I'm not searching from a place of panic, and it would come in more like, this is something maybe that I like doing, and it would be more from a grounded place. And so let's say we keep going down that worrying place because we're like fighting and trying harder to get ourselves out of this overwhelmed worry feeling. Then what happens is we go into the shutdown of overwhelm. And that's when our belief systems about ourselves and our capability comes in. I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough for this. I can't put up with this. It's too hard. What's the point? And so that then creates more overwhelm. So we've then got more overwhelm from this place, because we're then going into those limiting beliefs and the core beliefs around why we can't do it. Sometimes this happens on a subconscious level, which is why we can feel so heavy when we're in overwhelm. We can be in overwhelm and not even have these thoughts that come in, but just feel like procrastinating, heavy, don't want to get out of bed. And that's generally something that might be in the subconscious that's stopping us from moving forward. So that's why therapy can uncover these things. So we've got the first one, sympathetic, is fight flight, where we worry and we'll try harder in that space. And then down below, overwhelm, it's where we kind of give up, procrastinate, and it's all too hard and too much, because we're thinking about it from a place of, I'm not strong enough, I'm not powerful enough, I'm not supported. And in many ways we might not be supported. And then when we also think about it in that space of, like, I'm not good enough, that all our stuff comes up down in that dorsal state. So then it creates more overwhelm. So I'm going to bring you out of this space though. Don't feel like that we're just going to go in there and then I won't bring you back out. So holding the tension or riding the wave is what I talk about. And I just brought that in before. When there is tense moments, it's kind of like some people are really good with taking risks, right? They're good at investing, they're good at taking those risks and holding the tension. When you are creating a goal that's new, that you've never achieved before, that's, not familiar to your nervous system, you're going to go through the uncertainty and it's going to feel like a risk. So being able to hold that tension and ride the wave and continue to ground yourself through that, that's actually one of the biggest things that you can do when trying to achieve a goal. So as I've got here, we can feel stuck, worried, stressed. We want quick relief. So when you start to think about that quick relief, you're in that worry state. We want to be rescued too on a subconscious level. Like when we get down into the dorsal shutdown, we kind of can go into this space of, I can't do it, someone needs to help me. We can also bulldoze action. So we can take big action and bulldoze through a lot of things that are kind of trying to get our attention. So we then don't get the outcome we want, but we've probably created more chaos in the meantime. Difficult default back to familiar coping. So that's, for me, I take big action when I'm trying harder. I'll try harder and I'll take big action, and it just doesn't work that way. But that's what my default is. And so when I know that I'm wanting to create something new, I know it's coming from a place of worry if I haven't finished the thing that I have already implemented. So say I've created something on the side and then I want to create something else new, that means I'm in a bit of a worry default kind of mode, and I'm not taking care of the thing that I've already created. So we'll go back to coping mechanisms that give us that relief, and big consequences. So I want you to think, both of you, even in this session, like, think about the goal that you're working towards. So let's say with overwhelm, it can be that you've got, and this will be like a question that's like, how does it come up? Like, even when you're feeling overwhelmed, when is it common for you to feel overwhelmed? What is your goal as well? Like, do you have a goal that you're working towards and that's why you're feeling overwhelmed? Or is it just that you're feeling overwhelmed in your day-to-day life? So I would love to know that as well. And then when you've got this goal and you're working towards this goal, when I'm in overwhelm, what I suggest is like coming back up the ladder and grounding first. First and foremost, grounding is like the most important thing to do in overwhelm. And it's nourish yourself, take care of yourself, and ground, to slow things down in a healthy way. And then to just peel it right back step by step. So I often used to say, when I worked at the mental health retreat, take one task at a time, one step at a time. And notice that your mind will want to come in with the worry and the overwhelm again. So as you're doing this one task that you have ahead of you, your mind will try to come in when you're feeling stressed and be like, no, but you've got all these other things that you need to do, or but you need to do this quicker because, and notice what your mind does when you try to just do that one task. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and just keep on track. So what I do in that is I notice my mind wants to go into all these different directions, and I'll let it know it's like, I've got this, we're coming back, and we're going to just keep going and trust the process and trust what I'm doing in this first step. The reason why I say that is because once we do the first step and then the second step, things start to come back in alignment again. And then you'll start to ground more, you'll feel less stressed, you won't recreate other problems from being more in the stress response, and then you'll be able to come into it from more of an aligned place. But notice that your mind will want to try to take you out of the grounded space. It will continue to come in. I've got this little image of like a goal that we have, because often like we want the end thing because we want the feeling it gives us. So even think about with your goal, what is that feeling that you're wanting to get? Because as we know, we need to plant the seed, we need to nurture it, we need to water it, and then move our way through each little step to get to this goal. Often when we're in overwhelm, we're hyper focused on the end result and how can I get it as quick as possible. And we're trying to skip steps. And when we skip these steps, that's when we can have the chaos or the negative outcomes that come into this space. So what you want to do is just come back to knowing that, okay, I need to, if I want this bigger thing, if I want this goal, and I have this overwhelm, notice when I want that to come, notice when I'm sort of worrying and panicking and want it right now, and come back to the steps. So that's why I have that here. So overwhelm is a stress response. First things I think I've just spelled that wrong, but anyway, we want to do is ground. So first thing is ground. Whatever tools that you have to ground, whether it's go for a swim, get a massage, co-regulate with your partner if you're single, it's call a friend, go for a walk, nature walk with them. Make a list of grounding tools and ground. Even if you have to have, your mind will want to do the opposite because it's in overwhelm. So it's like, what do you mean ground? I don't have time to ground. I need to get these things done. And so what you want to do is come back, breathe, ground, even if it's like going outside in the garden or on the grass and putting your feet on the grass, taking a few deep breaths, putting some music on and ground for 15 minutes. The first thing we want to do is ground, because then we want to start, it will change our thinking and our emotional state, and then the action we take. So it can be as simple as that, but it's our mind that tries to convince us to do the opposite. So part of riding the wave and holding the tension is to go from overwhelm to grounding. So it will be, part of it might be going for a walk, because if we're all the way down the ladder in overwhelm, we might need a step before the top. So we might need to go for a vigorous walk. We may need to go to the gym, or maybe if we're too far down in dorsal, it might be just a small, real calm walk, or going out in nature and breathing and taking smaller steps. So it depends where you are in that overwhelm. If you're in fight flight and you're in that panic state, it would be, movement could be really supportive, like dance, put some music on, you could dance, you can shake a bit, change your state, you can do some breath work, you can walk on the grass, whatever it is that supports you when you're in that fight flight. Okay, so I would love to hear where you're at with all that information.
I'm happy to go first this time. I feel like give Kate a break because she's always going first. I really notice, I think the most when I feel overwhelmed is definitely through work. And that's very much because I tend to feel like hard work is how I get success, and it's part of my identity to be seen as a hard worker. And so I will always end up taking on more than I should. And then the overwhelm kicks in, and that kicks in deadlines. And what I tend to find is that I will procrastinate until the deadline gets closer. And then I put extra pressure on myself. And then all of a sudden I've got, 3 nights of staying up really, really late. So then I'm really exhausted. I'm working through the night. I'm still trying to juggle the kids. I'm stressed out trying to get this work done. Probably not my best work, but, it's getting it done just to meet this deadline. And then I get to the deadline, and then, I have a bit of a shutdown period. And then the next deadline is coming up. And then, so I tend to find I get into a lot of that sort of pattern. And that's definitely something that is happening now. So this is really poignant because I have 3 really big events with work coming up that are massive, and there'll be, there's a high level of stress with them. There's a high, this will go up to a high level of group of people and a wide group of people. So at the moment I'm finding I'm getting stressed about that because I'm working from home with the kids for school holidays, finding it really hard to stay focused and get stuff achieved, but knowing that these things are creeping up, and I just don't have the time to waste, but feeling not very productive. So
This really interesting point you make, because what I forgot to mention, and which you've brought it in, which is really great, is that there's 2 ways that stressful ways that I have discovered recently, just to explain it. Like, there's probably more than this, but 2 ways where we have like a deadline, right? A goal of something we need to get done. And it's maybe generally something that takes a fair bit of our energy. Like it does take our energy, mental, physical, it takes our energy. So there's one way that someone can do it where they're like panicked, right? They're just in panic the whole time. They're anxious. They just want to get it done and they can't hold the tension. And then the other way can be shut down. So it can be, I push it aside until it like needs to get done, really, like until I really need to get it done. So what we want to do is come to it from a place of in the middle. So the reason why I know this so well is I work with one of my colleagues that I work with. She has the push it away. Like, it's all good. It's going to be fine. Like, she's got the vision. She knows, like, it's good. Like, once I do the work, it's going to be amazing. And like, she's got the fantasy of it. And I used to be more in the panic, anxiety, and stress of it. And so what I found is I would let the person that wouldn't really think about all the stuff, like I would kind of, because I would go into anxious, I'd sort of like being rescued in that space, because I'd be like, oh, well, this person's not stressing and they know what's going to happen. But then what would happen is we'll get to that point and then we're both panicking and stressing and we're like, oh crap, we missed all this information. And so what we want to do,
Yeah.
what I'm being able to do is now working with her, and even if she does it on her own, what we do is we sit down and just write it out and look at the truth of what's in front of us. So like, we want that goal, we want to achieve it. What do we need to look at? Because often, like, it might feel overwhelming to come into that space, but what you want to do is the opposite of what you usually do. So for you, Tracy, coming into it like at the start where you first get that job, and even just starting to like write down what the things are, or like whatever it is, I don't know what your what your project is, right? Like, you'll know your project. And so like actually doing the opposite and then seeing how that feels for you to do the opposite, and to feel into that space of like, coming in and seeing what's in front of you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense, because that's exactly what happens. I do the shutdown thing, worry about other things before that, tick everything else off, or I'll go and do all the easy things first and then leave the hard thing, leave it, procrastinate. And then until it has to be done. And then I'm putting pressure on myself. So it does make sense. And I know there's certain areas where I work better. So I know if I go into the office, if I need to have time where I just sit and do stuff, it's actually better if I'm in the office. Whereas if I'm at home, I will do other things while I'm doing bits and pieces. So,
And part of it could also be asking for help.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that is something like my friend, she was like, oh, I was just taking on all the work. And I'm like, no, it's two of us here. And you would have people obviously around you that would support you. But she didn't want to ask for help. And that's why she'd push it away and then get it done later on. Because she was like, I'll just do it all myself. And I'm like, I'm here, I can help. So knowing also that, like, leaning into that support where possible too.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Thank you.
I'd be curious to see how that all goes, even just leaning into it in a different way.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, how about you?
Well, I've made some notes.
Love it.
I feel like I am like cleaning up after a whole bunch of step skipping.
Ah, right. Yes.
Like when you said it like that, I'm like, yeah. Like the tree. I'm always looking at the big tree and I'm like, I just need to get the tree to the tree. So the big tree. So it's like all these steps and as fast as they possibly can.
Yeah.
I am trying to slow that down now. I have and so that means that I'm left with messes everywhere because I'm like, I finished the tree, but like, all the steps in cleaning up after the tree and all the tools and
yes, that's so good that you got that. Like, now you know that you're
so
slow.
in the past I would skip steps and it never works out.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why I guess and then another note was grounding. I noticed when I was, so that I guess this Sue who's helping me organise my stuff, I was getting a bit panicked, I guess a bit overwhelmed, and she just had me breathe. And so I did it, just someone to remind you of what's going on for you sometimes. And then I like carried on with the task. So it kind of showed me, hey, I can do that thing where you calm yourself down.
Yes.
Because I have that thing in my head saying, you don't have time for that. You can get this stuff done. There's no time for grounding and all that self-care stuff. even though I do it, but like I could do more of it. And even if it's 15 minutes, yes, I'd probably feel way better and be able to actually think about what I'm doing. And that's where I think I was like running on fight and flight with all these. I used to get a lot done, way more than I ever have now, but I pushed myself to do it. And I'd say I was in fight and flight the whole time. Like,
Yeah.
so I wasn't, snappy and all that as well. And then you get to a point where you want someone to rescue you.
Mhm.
And that doesn't work out either, I found. Like, I'll never forget when, and I had real trouble finishing things. I'll get them to a certain point. It was like I had to get my B&B rented, but I needed it styled, and Mum decided she didn't want to help me. So I got someone else to help me, and they helped me. And then I was like, oh, I don't even like this. And then it was the first time I was like, notice this, like, each time you get someone to rescue you, it's not what you want. It doesn't help you. So then I wrote, and then you wrote a talk about getting help and delegating. I do the rescuing thing, but I actually do find it hard to ask for help. I was always like, I'll just do it myself. It's all too hard. And delegating out things. So you didn't believe someone could do it the way that you could do it. And then the last note was goals. Do I have too many? When you're like, what goal are you working on? I'm like, well, there's about 6. And then there's the whole life goal. Then there's 3, yeah.
Yeah, great question. So what did you come up with? Like,
What's the question?
do I have too many? Like what?
Well, there are things that have to get done for the larger goal, I guess.
So that's great. So if there are lots of little things that need to be done for the larger goal, what you want to bring the focus to is the first one that's most important. So you just focus on that, and your mind will want to go, but all of these others, let's do all of these others.
Yeah, I laughed. When I go back to where I'm like trying to tidy up, I laughed because I was like, I had gardening tools, power tools. Like, it was like I thought that I could do it all in one day. And like, it's going to be like a couple of months, I'd say, to really clean everything up, sort things out the way I need them to actually be sorted out. And I was like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
So that's overwhelming because you're like, yeah.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. So
Sure.
I'm just going to put this on. Yeah, great. So what also to know that the reason why we can go into overwhelm as well is because why we go into the coping mechanisms in the first place. So for you, Kate, getting things done back when you were young probably was a survival mechanism in your family dynamic. And for you, Tracy, for like doing it the way you did it was also probably a survival mechanism too. So like knowing that these default mechanisms don't come from a place of like us not wanting to do the certain thing a certain way. It's generally because that's how we got things done in the past, and it got us to where we are today. So honoring that is that space, and knowing that asking for support can be tricky, especially if we're working on boundaries, if we're working on having certain standards of how we want to be spoken to, treated, and how our how we want our work to be as well. So it is like layered. It definitely layered, and that's why we have therapy and we work towards those sort of things. And at the same time, once you have that clarity, then like you said, Kate, you can do the one goal, focus on that, know that your mind will come into it and want to derail and make you go into other directions. So just to finish off, I would love to hear how this session has supported you for your overwhelm experience, for when you are experiencing overwhelm. Who would like to go first?
I can. I think what I like and I find really good out of these masterclasses is just those steps that you can try. So it's just what's that next thing. So like for me is like what I'd like to do now is like tonight just go away and actually think about what is actually coming up. What do I need to do? And just sort of start planning and maybe even just go, okay, well, today is going to be this, and I'm going to write my, whip list. Sorry, that's my dog. My whip list for that and break it down that way so that I've got so it's a bit more step by step. And that way it's not just, you know, getting to the day and seeing what happens and then getting to the end of the day and I haven't done the thing I wanted to do. And yeah, so I think that's what I really like about these, is just it gives you what that next step could be so that I can actually try.
Fantastic. And also overwhelm, because we can have it all up here. So to get it on paper can be really supportive. So that's great. I'm glad you said that. That's another technique people can use who are watching the replay as well, is if you're feeling overwhelmed, just like put it all on paper and see what comes up when you do that. Like just do even a brain dump as well. You can do brain dump or you can do planning, whatever it is. But generally that can help to get it from in your mind out on paper. Great. Thanks, Tracy. Kate, what about you?
Can you remind me exactly what have I learnt today? Was it, or what was your question?
I'll just ask it again and see what comes up.
Yes.
What have you got out of today's session in connection with when you go into overwhelm? Like, what have you learned? What's something that you've learned?
I think because when you're in it, when you're really in it, you can't see anything. So I think it's really important to write, for me, to have this as a reminder and have overwhelm and then steps and make myself just do it. Like, because it's like if you write down in dorsal vagal, it's about going for that walk. But also I expect too much of myself and I make too big a list. But breaking it up into the actual goals and then in order, and then not thinking too much about the other goal. Look, I would be like, right, I'm getting this property ready for rent, but I have to build this other thing. So I'll start planning before I'm even halfway or a quarter or a tenth through the first job. I'll be looking at the materials and designing this other build.
Yes, right. So this is.
I don't need to. I need to be like, that's not now. You don't need to find the materials for that now. So that was another thing I noticed, because I was doing that the other day. I was like, no, I don't need to be scrolling Facebook Marketplace right now looking for a window. When that shipping container arrives, I can look for a window. It's like I'm muddling it all up. Of course I get overwhelmed. So this one step at a time.
Yay.
And reducing the time that I do, like expectation of time, like down to maybe 4 hours of a conserved like energy and stuff. But yes, and then knowing that maybe just the deep breathing, going, if you start to feel like that, stop and ground. Yeah, it's easier to say than do, but it really, I'm seeing it working. So I've got to, believe that and then do it, because my brain's like, you don't got time for that. But that brain's been pushing me a long time, and it's like just creates little piles of mini chaos piles of belongings and all sorts of things.
So I feel like this is going to be a huge way for you. Like, I feel like this is big for you at both.
Yes.
Both of you, but
it's incredibly big. I didn't realise that I have this overwhelm thing.
Yeah,
I guess, well, I knew, but not. And then also this time around, I haven't engaged people in my life that I normally would have, realising that they're not really the best support in this particular situation. It actually makes it worse and more overwhelming.
That is such a good point. It's like, are the people in your life creating more fear and overwhelm, or are they supporting you?
So get the right people to help you in the right things.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. Yep. Thank you to both of you. I love that you both got something out of today's session.
No, it's wonderful. We really appreciate it. Well, I do, yeah.
Same.
So great. And there will be people with the replay as well. So I do get contacted about that to send through the replay. It is on YouTube. As if you ever want to go back to them too, they're on YouTube as well, if you're curious to know what certain steps were for certain things. But yeah, I'll see you both in a week's time. Not this week, but next week.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks, Kate.
Bye.